Welcome to the XT Podcast, your ultimate destination for valuable insights, practical advice, and inspiring stories that will transform the way you experience business, governance, and life. Join your host, Ashutosh, as he dives deep into three distinct editions: Customer Experience Edition, where industry leaders discuss CX strategies, product brand employee experience, digital innovations, and best practices for improving customer engagement, retention, and loyalty.
Welcome back to another episode of the XT podcast, where we explore what it truly takes to create transformative experiences that drive business impact and human connection. Today, I'm joined by someone who doesn't just talk CX, she lives and breathes it. Sue Duris is the founder and principal consultant at M4 Communications, a strategic customer experience and marketing firm on a mission to help organizations become truly customer centric. With an MBA, a CCXP certification, and decades of hands on experience under her belt, Sue has led CX transformations across the globe, building programs that go far beyond vanity metrics to actually spark innovation, loyalty, and business growth. She's the kind of leader who can walk into a boardroom, rally executive teams around brand purpose, and still carve out time to mentor the next generation of CX talent. Her approach is data driven, people first, and refreshingly infused with clarity, energy, and even a sense of fun. In this episode, we dig deep. Here are a few questions we unpack. Why do so many CX efforts fail to deliver impact despite all the right intent? What's the cost of compliance driven CX, and how do we shift to purpose driven transformation? How do CX professionals earn, not ask for, a seat at the table? What blind spots hold even seasoned CX veterans back? And what does fun have to do with successful CX programs? This one's for CX leaders, CS champions, support heads, revenue owners, and anyone who believes experience isn't a department, it's a mindset, it's a business philosophy. Let's get into it. Hello, Sue. Thank you so much for joining us at the XT podcast. Really appreciate your availability and time.
Oh, well, I'm excited to chat. Thank you very much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. One of the benefits of talking to experienced leaders like you, Sue, is that we get a comprehensive perspective on customer experience. We also get real life case studies, and that's something very refreshing for my audience as well. One of the key topics I would want to touch upon first is that because you work with CX professionals across the industries globally, I would love to get your insights on what you believe holds most of the CX professionals back from making a deeper impact on the organizations they work for. I mean, it's not just internally, but even if it is an external consultant supporting a brand or an organization, what do you think holds them back from driving impact?
Well, I want to start with a quote from a film because I think it's very pertinent to what we're going to discuss. It's from A League of Our Own with Tom Hanks and Gina Davis, the women baseball film. And Gina Davis's character said at one point, or Tom Hanks had asked her why stop playing baseball, and she said because it became too damn hard. And Tom Hanks said if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And I think that plays very well into CX. CX is not for the faint of heart, as we both know. It's very difficult, it's challenging, but it's very rewarding. I'll be honest with you, CX has been around 14 years, I think that 14 or 15 years, and I still don't understand why CX isn't in the mainstream. And I think a lot of it has to do with ROI is that big nut to crack, but unlike a software program where there's instant gratification of an ROI, you can see it, it's tangible. Buy this computer software and you will definitely see ROI within 60 to 90 days. With CX, there's no instant gratification for ROI, and there's a lot of intangibles. You don't see tangibles right off the bat. It could be 5 years down the road for some. It could be months. It really depends on where you are, maturity based, and are things aligned in the organization. CX maturity has been very low. There was a survey done recently. 6% of the organizations that were asked have reached either the first or second highest level of CX maturity. And a lot of that has to do with what is the intention of CX? Is it something that the CEO, oh, my competitor has that, so I'm going to do it? Or is it, well, I don't know that much about customer centricity and all this stuff, but I'm willing to learn. And I think having the open mind that I want to investigate it is the first step, which leads me to when a CX person comes in, they tend to be a team of one. And I think if you looked at all the CX teams across the globe, I think I did a analysis of this at one point, that they're smaller than 10, closer to 1 to 2. And because they're coming in with no real support, they feel like they're an island. And I see a lot of CX teams taking that, really internalizing that I'm an island, I have to do this by myself. So they go ahead and do what they think they should do from a CX standpoint. And that's where the trouble starts. I've also been doing some analysis on the Stephen Covey
Right.
seven habits of highly effective people. And I 7 habits can apply to CX professionals, but the ones that I think pertain to our function are: begin with the end in mind, put first things first, think win-win,
Right.
think first to understand, and then be understood, and then synergize.
Beautiful.
And those play into this particular question on what's happening. They get in their own way, thinking that it's almost romanticizing CX in a sense that, okay, I'm the CX person. I need to do a strategy. I need to do journey maps. I need to do the voice of the customer. I need to have a dashboard in there, and I have to prove value. But as I described that, it's CX in a silo. And
Yes.
we don't want CX in a silo. And that's why I mentioned these Stephen Covey things. And the one that sticks out for me is seek first to understand, to be understood. Consultants and in-house CX professionals want to put CX things in place. And so they're talking to the C-suite, and each member of the C-suite has their own agenda. And each member of the C-suite is an internal customer. And yes, somebody told me that there are no such things as internal customers. Oh, there very much are. You have your external customers that are your bona fide customers, and the people that you're trying to influence in the organization. And if you're not speaking their language, using their words, for instance, the CEO might be, well, we need to grow. Well, can we build this CX? We need to build this CX program. Okay, how do those two sentences align? And it's the CX pro's job to convince that C-suite person, C-suite member, that if we do these things, you're going to see growth. Understanding what their pains are, understanding what's motivating them, and all these different things. We also have to become storytellers. And if we can craft a story, this is the challenge, this is how we can resolve the challenge, and these are the results that we get. And by the way, this drives growth, is how we can connect. And I see a lot of consultants as well as CX teams not aligning CX. CX, at the end of the day, and the beginning of the day, supports what the strategy is.
Right.
And if there's not that connection, you're going to fail before you start. I mean, and that is also your path forward into aligning customer metrics with operational metrics, so you operationalize CX.
Beautiful. I love it how you beautifully articulated and unpacked so much. I think those who listen to this would now understand that CX is so comprehensive. It touches upon so many things. And for CX to therefore deliver, the entire organization has to rally behind CX and support the initiative. You very well called it out. In fact, one of the key things I noticed in one of the habits that you called out is putting the end game in mind first, in focus first. And this is where I see one of the major challenges that come through is that should a CX professional, consultant, or an internal leader be process focused or be outcome focused? And the reason I'm asking is I love it when you call out explicitly the box checking CX. I love it in your posts and your commentaries. You talk about this a lot. I would love to understand what's the difference between compliance driven CX and impact driven CX, and how would a professional make that shift? Because your first answer clearly says and conveys that it's a difficult job. Given that it's difficult, how does the one make a shift in terms of box checking processes and compliances versus genuinely driving outcome, no matter how later those would come? But how do we achieve the impact later on?
I think a lot of times we think that you have to make some big change to impact, but even adjusting 1%, 10%, very, very small change um, will have an impact.
Yes.
So, this question is, I view it as a CX maturity question
Okay.
because um, when you're in the check the box phase, you're you're looking at the early stages of CX. In my opinion, that okay, we're investigating. I love when the Temkin group was around. They're now part of Qualtrics, as we know. I learned that was my first foray into CX maturity, and I loved the ignore or explore was the first step. So
Nice.
we're at the point where you're exploring, and that's where the check the box. Are we compliant? Do we if we're going to do this, and even the second stage where you're starting to build out the program, that's where the checking the boxes come in. What needs to happen is understanding the purpose. Why are we checking these boxes? And how are we aligning everything that we do? So, I mean, the first step is to understand, are we customer centric? What do we need to do to become customer centric? When we become customer centric, then we need to look at, do we understand our customer? And then the whole pieces of strategy come into play, and putting a voice of the customer program together, and then the journey mapping, and the data piece and the feedback piece. How do those things tie together? If you can make that switch, because when you're being compliant, it's a checkbox, and it's very much transactional. It's all these different tasks that you're doing, but what is the connection between the tasks? Connecting all the tasks drive you from being a program, which, by the way, I hate the word CX program, because CX is not a project or a program. CX is DNA.
Right.
It's your ethos. It should be an organization's ethos on what it does. And when you understand why you're checking these boxes and what it's going to produce, that's how you get more mature. You had mentioned what I had said about beginning with the end in mind. For me, that's, what does CX at X organization look like when it's successful?
Ah, I
Back
see.
and then you backtrack from there. And that's how you determine, okay, I need a journey map so I understand the current state and I understand where my gaps are. And to close those gaps, I need to query my customers, and I need to do quantitative and qualitative research. And those insights help provide the path to future state. And having those soft skills, just
Right.
understanding, um, showing empathy, being curious, trying to be so concerned and so, I would say, customer driven, to want them to achieve those desired outcomes each and every day. And that's something that you can't figure out by checking the boxes. Checking the boxes are very important. That's a good starting place, but just understanding what those checked boxes, or why you want to check those boxes, is going to produce.
Beautiful. In fact, I love to call out two things. One is CX typically would be listen, interpret, and act. And you're explicitly calling out that while this could be a process, you should first ask, what are you listening to and why? what are you interpreting and why. So the purpose behind the process is key. And the second thing, what I loved is having a perspective on what the future of CX looks like. In fact, I would love to embed a reference to literally the previous episode with Jamie Lutz, where he happened to talk about the future back thinking, that while we often have a reactive CX where we say, if we discover a problem, let's solve it, it's always good to have an eye on the future, exactly how you said it, so that we know where we are moving towards and directionally how we are taking the CX forward. I love that call out. Having said that, Sue, what I've seen is when it comes to executing what you just said, I have seen a lot of CX leaders and consultants either fail or face a lot of hurdles because they don't get to have the cross functional buy-in that is necessary to drive success for the processes, compliances, or the impact that they're chasing. So, is there any advice that you can give to consultants and professionals in terms of seeking acceptance or getting a buy-in or influencing these very internal cross-functional stakeholders, especially when there's a lack of positional authority? Because a lot of times CX do not have the authority at times to push the cross-functional peers to be aligned to their agenda.
Well, that's a very interesting question because my view is CX adoption is not only a top down, it's a bottom up. And when I go into organizations, either as a consultant or internal employee, I want to understand the lay of the land, the landscape, who has the influence, who's making the decisions, how is the decisions being made, almost following the money type of thing.
Right.
That is good from a top down understanding executive leadership. But the line person, whether it's a line manager or someone who may or may not be customer facing, and I like to have meetings with people in all teams, and let's be honest, CX does touch most teams. CX even touches HR through
Of course.
employee experience and that whole piece. Um, so having those conversations, understanding what their pains are, it's almost having a conversation with a customer because they are, hey, I'm not being able to do this, and I think that it's hurting our ability to deliver to our customers. And that those pieces of feedback are very important nuggets because it's not all about doing a customer survey. It's not all about having a customer interview. Are you listening to your employees? Are you listening to your suppliers? Because they have insights as well. So taking that information and helping them, I always love it when I do this approach and somebody who may not have the influence to make a decision will talk about, we have to, Sue was talking to us about the survey, and we need to do it in a certain way so that our customers view it as an experience. Or Sue's been teaching us about this touch point. I just wanted to say on this touch point, I'm getting this type of feedback, and I think we should do this. Embracing the language of change and growth are what I love to see, but doing so takes work. And you'll notice that I'm going back to different questions too,
Yes.
because I don't want to call myself the master connector, but I view myself as a connector because Albert Einstein taught us that all matter is interconnected. Anyhow,
Lovely.
so I think that some CX pros, for whatever reason, don't want to roll up the shirt sleeves and actually do the legwork. Sometimes they want to just have it handed to them on a plate, or I want to do this because this is what I'm accustomed to. But each business is different, and you have to work with the inputs that they give you to produce outputs that will drive their business growth.
I cannot agree more with you, Sue. In fact, it's interesting you brought the reference of Albert Einstein because in his theory of relativity, he also brought in
I
the
hope
term.
it's Albert Einstein. I think so.
Yeah, no, in fact, he very interestingly brought in the term frame of reference in theory of relativity. And I genuinely feel a lot of CX professionals and consultants fail at cross functional connect because they don't use the frame of reference of the functional leader that they're engaging with. So if I'm talking to a sales leader and I tell them, hey, I'll improve your NPS by 2 percentage points or CSAT by X, they have no skin in the game on that. They don't care, to be frank. But if you were to tell them, hey, I'll improve your sales cycle time, I'll improve your conversion rates, I'll help you improve your pipeline management, then probably they'll have an ear. And granted, we may not be able to drive the metric directly, but if you're able to convey how and where the current bottlenecks are in terms of them achieving these metrics because of our processes and box checks, maybe they'll have a more patient ear to us. But that frame of reference is missing. We end up talking CX and they don't have a clue what they're listening to.
Yeah,
So I'm
that's
glad you
why
brought that.
some CX, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there. Some CX consultants, pros, it's almost like talking to a Martian that
Yes,
the C-suite would think they're not listening to me. I want to understand growth. What is this CX thing? What is this effort score, NPS? I've heard about it, but is it helping me reach my North Star? My North Star is growth.
exactly.
How and that's where we've all been guilty of
Yes,
these things. It's just being aware that having enough empathy and showing that empathy that I get where you're coming from and I hear your pains. Tell me more so that I can understand and help. Once you're
absolutely.
getting, it's all about storytelling also. It's all about, not only you telling the story, but listening to what they're saying so that you together can help craft the story.
100%. And it does connect to one of the habits you called out right up front, which was focus on understanding rather than be understood. This beautifully connects to that very habit you called out explicitly right at the start. And it also brings up another topic then, so which is theory is great. Most CX professionals are very good at this theory of which survey to use, what metrics to use, what to analyze. There's a lot of theory around all the processes that one would drive in CX, but that doesn't necessarily help owning one seat on the table with the CXOs or at the board, right? So how does, in practical terms, one achieve this respect or authority with the CXOs or at the board, saying, we understand your theory, but we understand the implications practically as well, let's do it? What in your experience could give us that seat on the table?
Well, every seat at those tables are earned. So, I mean, they should be asking, am I influential? Am I adding value? Am I driving change? Am I helping growth, helping the organization grow? Those different things, because having those in place are going to be very valuable when you get the seat at the table. It's all about the CEO, or if the CX person, the chief customer officer is under the chief marketing officer, or if they're separate and haven't had a seat and now have a seat. It's all, that's something earned. That's something that shouldn't be, oh well, I'm a chief customer officer now. I should get a seat at the table. I should be involved in key decision making and things of that nature. I mean,
Yes.
it shouldn't happen that way. I mean, you should do what you bring earns you that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'll change the track slightly because all this while we have been talking about the good habits of CX, what are the right things for the CX professionals and consultants to do. I would love to now see if we can address certain blind spots that exist within the CX professionals as well. What I'm referring to are possibly unproductive habits, negative habits that you would have seen in seasoned professionals that you coach, interact with, engage with. How can one spot and address these unproductive habits, blind spots early and fix them before it drives any negative impact?
You had mentioned veterans, and it was interesting. I was having a conversation recently with someone about blind spots on the CCXP exam. And I had mentioned that when I took the exam, I had to unlearn things because, as you know, that exam is very, very much what's the best way to do something. Whereas
Yes.
if you are a veteran, it's you're thinking, how would I do it? And it very much plays here. And that's where veterans could tend to have fixed mindset. This is how I did it. This is how I'm going to do it. That's the way it's going to be, as opposed to a growth mindset on understanding that this is a different type of organization with different types of people, with different type tools, with different inputs. Using all that information will help you get why output. I think they have this sometimes, the fixed mindset, not the open mind that there is a different way of doing things. And I think that that's important. And especially when you're trying to influence different people, whether it's management, non-management, executive teams, executive leadership, you have to have that ability to keep an open mind because of all the different types of agendas that are out there. And how do you align those agendas so that the CEO and the CTO and the CMO and the CFO, all the C words or the C acronyms, align and meet in the middle somewhere? I think there needs to be that excitement, that joy in what they're doing, to care about peeling back the onion just because NPS said 70. Is it really 70? Why is it 70? What are the trends? Has it been 70? Was it down last quarter? Was it up? So, and that's why I always talk about the two traits that CX professionals must have, and that's you need to have that empathetic bone. You need to be able to show that empathy, and it's a muscle that must be conditioned. It's like working out. It just doesn't happen like that. You have to exercise it, and being curious enough to find out the details. That's why I love digging into data. I love looking at those insights, and what are those insights telling me? How are those insights going to get me to a place where I can make improvements, where I can really align customer metrics with what the outcomes are? So things like that. We talked a little bit earlier about we can't just be for the customer. There are other stakeholders. There are employees. There are suppliers. There could be partners. If you have a board, and most organizations do have boards, whether informal or not, all these different pieces play a significant role to being able to embed CX so that it is part of the DNA and it drives growth, which everybody seems to want with a reason. Also, CX can't be a silo. I talked about we need to understand what the business plan is. What's the organizational strategy? How does CX tie into that? And being able to that's another place where maybe you haven't developed the relationship that you want with a C-suite member, but starting to tell your CX story. This is how CX aligns with the organizational strategy. This is the path that we need to take to drive growth.
How lovely. So, in fact, all through the questions we have had so far, I think we have sweetly covered the do's of CX and the don'ts of CX in a way, right? Like we have covered the both. And it's always refreshing to talk to leaders like you because you also coach CX leaders and professionals. You have been a coach to several as well. And with all your comprehensive understanding of the do's and the don'ts, I'm very curious, Sue, to understand, have you witnessed any breakthroughs or recurring themes which you feel that professionals do and drive, and which is why they have breakthrough impact as well? Any sparking breakthrough recurring themes that you have observed, witnessed in those professionals who have managed to achieve breakthrough impact through CX?
I think the realization that CX is not a destination, it's a journey.
Nice.
Understanding that there's always going to be improvements. It's going to be continuous. It's like wash, rinse, repeat type thing. It's ongoing, and understanding that. And again, it comes to caring enough to have that be customer obsessed, wanting to see their needs be met, but understanding you can't do it yourself. That brings me to back to the synergize piece of the Covey 7 habits, that we can't do this stuff in a vacuum. We need to work together to drive change. And I think that's been another thing about leaders understanding how important a concept collaboration is. It's not, we're in a meeting together. No, it's you're working together to create something that is going to help the customers and ultimately help us. And that's driving the growth. It's improving customer lifetime value. It's and then seeing that growth drive and seeing customers become advocates to help you grow even more. So all those things that you want to see happens through collaboration and everybody getting in a room and getting together and talking about, well, this is my need, and where how do we align? So those things, I think the understanding that it's a never-ending process, it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Oh, how am I going to get out off this? What do they call it? The mouse wheel. It's not a mouse wheel. It's, yeah, she might be doing some repetitive things, but look at the fruits of your labor and look at all the things that are coming together. I also do a lot of advising startup CEOs. I've had a few CEOs actually not start their business until we chatted because they said, I want to start on the right foot and CX is important to me. And you have all the different things that a startup founder goes through. I need acquisitions, I need active users. So how am I getting user adoption, and how am I increasing average revenue per user, and all the key metrics that they're all interested in. That's all about not having inside out thinking. The days of we will build it and they will come are long gone. It's all about what is the unmet or undermet need? How are you providing that? Do you know do you have an ideal customer profile? Do you have a product market fit? Are these things in place? And all these things that we're talking about are what we as people do. I mean, we're so many things. We're data scientists. We're change masters, or we're change catalysts. I can't think of what I wanted to say. Oh, we're growth catalysts, change masters, and all these different things. We're not, and that comes back to the checking the box. We're not checking the box as, okay, strategy, check. Journey map, check. Feedback, closed loop feedback mechanism, check. Data dashboard, check. They're all aligned together to move customers to where they want to be and move the organization to where it wants to be.
How lovely. But it sounds like such a complex job. It appears to be hard, tough, iterative, process oriented, data oriented, cyclical, all of that. And I love it when you say while CX is data driven, people first, you add a specific line which says, and always infused with fun. Right, you don't miss out on that, and I don't know why is fun underrated in CX.
Well, I will tell you. Short story. I'm loving the puzzles on LinkedIn because they make you think. And I am a puzzle nut, but it has to be the right puzzle. You know, not a time waster, but something that really makes you think. And I think that's where CX can get back to. We need to find the joy in CX that we want to care enough to show empathy. We want to care enough to be curious, to find out the issue. But I love going through the data, meaningful data. I mean, data that makes sense. We could spend our time on just vanity data, and we don't want that. We want meaningful data and looking at those insights. And has an insight created a hypothesis? Okay, how do we test that hypothesis? That's through maybe more data, but more specific to that hypothesis, and feedback and testing and validating and maybe adjusting and retesting, and then you have something that is an improvement. And seeing customers not be delighted. I don't believe our role is to delight the customer. Our role is to meet their need. They're looking to us. They're trusting us to solve their pain. Are we doing that? How are we doing that? Why are we doing it? excuse me. And I think that even bringing back some type of gamification so the entire organization gets involved, we just don't want to game the gamification. So they're
Of
just
course.
like, if you have a points thing, oh, I need to do this thing because I can get the points. Well, you can get the points if you understand, why you're doing it. And it should be less about the points and more about, am I making a contribution? Am I adding to this? And I think employees, and I've done the employee experience and employee engagement, a lot of research on this, that it's less about the salary and benefits and more of the sense of accomplishment. I did this. This makes me feel good. And because this makes me feel good, I'm going to spend more time. I'm going to
Yes.
go the extra mile and do more. And when they do that, the customer takes notice and they want to be associated with this type of organization.
Can't agree more. Smiles go miles, as they say. The challenge for me, Sue, is when I talk to leaders like you, each of your answer spawns into five different questions. And if I were to ask all of those, our episode will be a 5 hour long marathon and not a 1 hour episode. So I'll have to cut it short here. It's been phenomenal talking to you. I can't help but ask you this final question because I feel every professional who's listening to this would gain a lot from hearing your perspective on this. Is there any one bold message that you would want to pass on to any of the professionals who are currently struggling to drive impact in the organizations that they're supporting internally or as consultants? Any one message that you would want to give to them?
I'm going to give you two. One I talked about was, we need to be storytellers. That's how you're going to build and expand your influence. And I will say, in the age of AI, that we as CX pros must be willing to evolve. We cannot assume that what we did yesterday is going to work today or tomorrow. So we need to evolve and be brave enough to search that out. What does that mean for you? Each person's different. And the question always comes down to, how and where am I adding value?
Nice. Well, you refer to storytelling, like every story ends happily ever after. Here's me kind of having a play out on that, saying, I wish that all of us CX professionals get to chase the happily ever after with all the power and empathy and data crunching and consistency and commitment and all of that. So thank you so much, Sue, for giving us your time, your insights. I genuinely feel one episode isn't enough. There are several threads that you opened up through your answers, and I would want another episode to have a go at those as well. But
I'm
thank
happy
you
to
once
come
again.
back. I'm happy to come back. I enjoyed it, and in fact, whenever I can talk about CX, I absolutely, it just energizes me because I'm customer and CX obsessed.
How wonderful. Thank you. Thank you once again, Sue. Appreciate this.
Thank you.